Hey guys, it's Michael here for MMOBomb.com, sitting here at the Wargaming booth at E3. I'm talking to Gareth from Wargaming, the senior producer on World of Warships. Gareth, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How's your E3?
It's been great. It's been really great. Last day here, so excited to get all the games out. But Gareth, we've been just shown some new information for World of Warships, and I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about what the development's been like over the last year. You know, it's been in alpha for over a year now. Can you talk a little bit about the progress World of Warships has made over that year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we showed World of Warships last year in a closed theater, and we were showing pre-rendered video of actual gameplay. This year we're pretty excited because we're running the live alpha service. And to answer your question, the reason it's been in alpha for that extended period is because during the development period, we really started listening to what our players were saying in the alpha, and listening to their opinions. And what we notice is the real big differentiator with warships to say something like warplanes or World of Tanks is scale. It happens on a much bigger theater. You've got maps that are hundreds of miles square. So we had to really update our rendering engine in a big way, because you spend most of the game looking at water, the horizon, and huge warships. To be able to render them in big detail took a major rewrite of our rendering technology. So that was one of the sort of key focus areas that we wanted to do, was raise the bar visually to really represent the warships in a big way. But also the collision models. Some of these warships have 160 guns on them, and to calculate the trajectory and all the ballistics on that was pretty processor intensive. So we had to simplify the damage models and balance the 4 types of vessel that are in the game. And doing that took it was quite a challenging thing. So that's what we've been focused on for the last sort of 12 months.
Awesome. Now, in terms of a player who may be familiar with like World of Warships or World of Warplanes, what are some of the more key iconic differences between Warships and your other titles? So what are some of the interesting features that you brought in that someone who's just played like World of Tanks, for example, it's not just tanks and it's not a boat version of tanks. What's the difference there?
It's a very different game because of the scale. In itself, aircraft play a much bigger role in World of Warships as a part of an actual deployable unit, and we haven't done that before in our other games, where you can actually use a different type of vessel or a different type of vehicle. Because of the scale, when you're on a map hundreds and hundreds of miles square, you don't know where the enemy is, and you could spend your whole time just sailing in blue ocean, and we didn't want that. So we've got aircraft carriers in the game, which use 4 different types of aircraft, and we've also got scout aircraft on the cruisers and that as well. So the anti-aircraft guns on the vessels themselves actually function as well. So there's a deeper layer of strategy in World of Warships that's just on a different scale, and it's a very different game in that aspect. World of Warplanes is very fast. Very Twitch sort of gameplay. World of Tanks is very terrain-based. Using the terrain is key. World of Warships is a strategy game on a massive scale. So using your aircraft and your different types of vessel is key. Teamwork's going to be a major part of World of Warships.
Looking towards the future of World of Warships development, what are you guys looking to add to the game in the near future? We looked at a little sort of a team deathmatch mode essentially today, where your goal was to take out the other ships. Do you have other modes planned? How do you sort of plan to use, as you said, the fact that you're in these giant hulking warships? How do you plan to use that to sort of flesh out the game modes and the style of play?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's exactly where we are at the moment. We're in rapid prototyping game mode sort of phase of our alpha. So, like for instance, the battle that we showed you today, which you poor people don't get to see just yet, but that was essentially a capture the flag scenario, where you have 2 zones you can defend and attack, then you can eradicate the enemy. We're currently prototyping modes that have like escort missions and are more PvE focused. We can't go into too much going on to that, because a lot of that stuff's still in development, but that sort of gives you an idea of the prototyping that we're doing at the moment.
Can you talk a little bit about more of the aircraft carrier mechanic? Because in the presentation you mentioned that it was more of an RTS style of play, which is completely different from everything else we've seen from Wargaming. How does that really play into how that particular aircraft carrier plays versus the other types of ships?
Yeah, sure. So we've got 4 vessels in alpha at the moment. We've got sort of your rock, paper, scissors, destroyer, cruiser, and battleship that are direct engagement type vessels. The aircraft carrier isn't. You don't want to be in direct engagement with any of those other vessels as well. So it's usually played from the rear as a sort of a base, like a mobile base, if you will. And the current implementation has this playing in an overhead sort of artillery mode, where you can see a lot of the map, because the 4 aircraft that are deployed from the aircraft carrier have a very long range. So what you really need to do in terms of strategy is keep your aircraft carrier safe. So you can't just go off and, you know, tank rush the enemy. You need to make sure that you've got some cruisers there to support it. But very, very powerful, because they have long-range scout aircraft. They also have dogfighting style aircraft. You have dive bombers, and you have torpedo aircraft on it. So it can take out any of those classes really, really, really quickly. So making sure that you manage your aircraft carrier is one of the key points of the game.
No kamikazes?
No kamikazes. No, the capability's there, but we don't think that the game needs that that style of gameplay. Okay.
Now, being in closed alpha, do you have any plans to go into a closed beta? Like, what is sort of your game plan with rolling out World of Warships over the next, say, year or so?
So yeah, that's a great question. We're planning on going into closed beta this year. That's our development goal. But really, it's about getting the game to a high enough quality for us to be happy with, and for our beta alpha players to, you know, really be giving us that strong positive feedback that the game's ready. We think that'll be this year, so we're looking forward to that.
Destructibility was a really big part of World of Tanks, you know, being able to drive through buildings and drive through some of the terrain, you know, like the little walls, essentially. Is there any sort of that destructibility present in World of Warships? You know, we got big ships, you have, you know, some of the docks in other areas, you know, landscape. How does that work in terms of physics and such?
Well, you know, warships are really big and very heavy, so you don't want to be like plowing those things into, you know, if you do hit other ships, the damage does calculate. It is part of the gameplay. It's a little bit different, say, from tanks, because, you know, like you were saying, you know, stone walls and defenses and telephone poles and all that shit, you know, they can just like blast through that. But in warships, the scale's a little bit different. So yes, the landscape and the settings do have collision. It is realistic. The physics are calculated. So if you do smash into an island, you will sink. If you smash into another warship, you will probably do a lot of damage to yourself and him. In terms of the actual ships themselves, everything on the warships is accurately modeled. You can blow turrets off. They have buoyancy. We actually model the interiors of the ships as well. So it's very accurate in terms of the damage that can be done or will be done to your ship and the landscape as well.
Still no plans for submarines?
No submarines, no. And there's a reason for it. We looked at it and we started thinking about prototyping it, but it takes away from the core dynamic of the game. And this is a game first and foremost. You know, we have to get a very exciting dynamic between those classes, and it really created an imbalance in the game that we weren't happy with. I think that would be an entirely different game altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's understandable. Well, Gareth, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about World of Warships. Closed beta, of course, you said it was sometime this year at point, and we're looking forward to checking out at that point. But until then, I really look forward to seeing it, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.